But I'm also here today to correct how the MAGA right has portrayed me for their political purposes. I am first and foremost a son, a father, a brother, and a husband from a loving and supportive family. I'm proud to have earned degrees from Georgetown University and Yale Law School. I'm proud of my legal career and business career. I'm proud of my time serving on a dozen different boards of directors. And I'm proud of my efforts to forge global business relationships. For 6 years, MAGA Republicans, including members of the House committees who are in a closed-door session right now, have impugned my character, invaded my privacy, attacked my wife, my children, my family, and my friends. They have ridiculed my struggle with addiction, they have belittled my recovery, and they have tried to dehumanize me, all to embarrass and damage my father, who has devoted his entire public life to service. For 6 years, I have been the target of the unrelenting Trump attack machine, shouting, "Where's Hunter?" Well, here's my answer. I am here. Let me state as clearly as I can. My father was not financially involved in my business, not as a practicing lawyer, not as a board member of Burisma, not in my partnership with a Chinese private businessman, not in my investments at home nor abroad, and certainly not as an artist. Yet, here I am, Mr. Chairman, taking up your offer when you said we can bring these people in for depositions or committee hearings, whichever they choose. Well, I've chosen. I am here to testify at a public hearing today to answer any of the committee's legitimate questions. Republicans do not want an open process where Americans can see their tactics, expose their baseless inquiry, or hear what I have to say. What are they afraid of? I'm here. I'm ready.
Now I'd like to say a few words. Hello? I must be going. I cannot stay. I came to say I must be going. I'm glad I came, but just the same I must be going. La la.
What are they afraid of? I'm here. I'm ready.
Hunter, are you willing to go across the street? Why don't you?
Why not testify now? Why did you get if your father was?
You know, if you heard what Ali said before the vote and you heard what Molly said during the vote, there are no moderate Republicans. Like, we need to just stop with the nonsense. There are no moderate Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives. There are proud MAGA and there are scared MAGA. That's it. 221 of them. Every single member of the Republican House, whether they were a proud MAGA or scared MAGA, just voted for a bogus, nonsensical impeachment motion to proceed because they pay fealty to Donald Trump. And it is a shameful moment in American history. It is a shameful moment for each one of these members, but it is an important moment that every American watching right now should realize that there is nothing other than an authoritarian MAGA movement in the Republican Party. And come next November, those members of Congress, a large number of them, are going to lose their seats over this.
I'll take a bet on that, Mark Elias. The railhead of Proud MAGA, the War Room. You're here for the early evening edition, the second hour. I want to thank everybody for this one. I wanted to bring in the main battery, main gun. That would be Garrett Ziegler over Marco Polo. Okay, Garrett, before I get into the details, and Garrett's wanted to come on the other day. He was a little tied up. I need you to deconstruct Hunter's presser, because I think, sir, that might have been aimed at you in the War Room. But I want your take, your sophisticated take. Just go through and deconstruct what Hunter Biden was doing there at the Sticks.
Well, I read the transcript. Rev put it out, and I think about 2 lines of it were true. The 2 lines of it that were true were that he was irresponsible with his finances, and that they have a mafia o muerta code around the Biden family where, they'll go down together. Everything else, Steve, he wants to chalk this up to profligate spending. I mean, who among us hasn't tried to write off hookers as a business expense? This is every single thing on the Biden bingo card was hit. His addiction, his brother, and everybody's picking on me. And he's a 53-year-old man. For the record, the only reason why anyone cares about him is because of who his father is. And you'll know that he mentioned the CEFC grift, which you've laid out very clearly, the Burisma grift, but he also left out one of the main deals explicated in the indictment, which was the Romania shakedown. Remember, Joey was going over to Bucharest talking about corruption and anti-corruption, where at the very same time, Hunter and Ruby Freeman's attorney, Mike Gottlieb, are over there trying to strong-arm the judiciary in Romania to take it easy on Gabriel Popoviciu. So he left out the Romania. I think it's what he doesn't say. You mentioned that he won't say he didn't call you out by name. He didn't call me out by name. That's because I think we're Voldemort to these people. We are, he who must not be named, because if they name us, then people are going to start sniffing around and seeing what we've got, which is direct evidence of Joe's FARA violations. This isn't speculation. We have all the emails. Unlike somebody who came up with a whistleblower complaint and previously worked for Joe on Ukraine policy, there's an actual paper trail here of Joe involved via FARA violations and money laundering with Hunter. It's a shame that the Republicans didn't take him up on his offer. I think they should have done both, because I think it makes Abby Lowell look sharp for Hunter to come out there in front of the sticks. One thing people don't realize, or some people don't realize, I should say, Steve, is that Eric Swalwell, the Fang sex partner, he was the one who reserved the space for Hunter to go in front of the Capitol yesterday. And you had Hunter's patron, Kevin Morris, basically holding hands with Fang's lover behind Hunter. So this is an Eric Swalwell operation.
Go through. Let's. By the way, I thought it was an epic fail, because at the sticks he then runs away. That's when we played the Animal Crackers, with the Marx Brothers, with Groucho Marx. But Abby Lowe, I mean, what are your thoughts? Abby Lowe, that's a kind of a desperation, given that he won't. Well, I want to get into the details and the evidence, because all they're saying nonstop on MSNBC and CNN, the Praetorian Guard, there's no evidence. Why are we doing this? But you saw Mark Elias. Mark Elias is what I call one of the smart demons. He's scared to death. That's why he's kind of rattling that. He's so upset about this. Oh, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. He's scared because he knows the type of receipts we have. But let's go back to Abby Lowell first. Abby Lowell thinks he's a big strategic thinker. I think this was a face plant. What do you think?
I don't think it was a faceplant, but I also don't think it was a victory. I think that it allows him to maintain plausible deniability to not be held in contempt, that he was there, that he did take serious these subpoenas from Congress, and they're going to cite Comer's own interview saying that he can have it either way. But
hang on. Having known a little thing about the details of that, he did not show up to the committee room. Show up to Capitol Hill in front of the sticks that does not qualify as actually showing up. You got to show up and go
totally
at least according to the indictment of Stephen K. Bannon. You've got to. I assume they're going to hold the same standards.
Well, they brought up Holder today, right? So Hunter is expecting, like with Eric Holder, that even if they do, his daddy's admin won't hold him in contempt, or at least indict him for contempt. But yeah, you have more skin in this than anyone, except maybe my former boss. You and him are in the same, ridiculous boat in that they. Hunter's different than you and me, to use a Great Gatsby phrase. The only reason why I would say that it buys Hunter some time a little bit. It buys them another 3 to 4 weeks to, get their coffers refilled from Kevin Morris and other dark money figures. This entire fiasco is just the beginning. I think it helps us and the country that this is going into 2024. I really believe it does.
Big time. Yeah. Very much so. They know that too. Okay. Let me go back. In his statement, he said they got on me for being a businessman, forming strategic businesses alliances strategic business alliances with other countries and working with Chinese businessmen. Just, I want you to go through the receipts on the CCP, on Burisma in Romania, of what we already know that is out there. I know this because I've gone through your documentation at Marco Polo. Why is that such nonsense? And it hurts him, I think, putting that on the record. Oh, is it really strategic business alliances is what you're doing with legitimate Chinese businessmen? Sir.
Well, let's start out with the Chi-Coms, number one. There are no deals consummated through the CEFC grift. Got $5.6 million, that's a floor, from CEFC, and then the only deal that they even went half-hearted in was Monkey Island, which went belly up. So there are literally no services rendered for that $5.6 million. Additionally, with the Chi-Coms, he gets $1 million retainer, which was alluded to in the indictment, and offers no legal services whatsoever. He basically made $1 million for a single phone call to Edward Krieger and Lewin LLP. They were the attorneys for Patrick Ho. That is a clear FARA violation. There is a legal exemption of FARA, but you have to be representing the party in an official proceeding. Hunter was never even on the docket as an attorney for Patrick Ho. So these aren't legitimate consulting contracts. There's nothing to show for CEFC other than paying off the Bidens. And remember, the indictment says their work with CEFC and their negotiations, I'm not sure if all your audience knows this, but you do. It started in late 2015, more than 14 months before Joey leaves office. And so I think some of that 5.6 was back pay. For the influence peddling that occurred in 2016, and this is borne out through the whistleblower materials wherein they say, we don't want to receive payments while Joey's in office, just wait till Joey's out. And sure enough, that $3.1 million from HK Energy, the Hong Kong domiciled firm, comes into Robinson Walker LLC 6 weeks after Joey is done being VP. Let's go on to the next country. These are all FARA violations, and because they're FARA violations, all that is laundered money.
Hang on, slow down 1 second. Just for our audience that may not be up to speed on all the nomenclature. What is FARA? What is a FARA violation, and why is that so important?
So FARA is codified at 22 U.S.C. 612, and the exact statutory language is that if you are an unregistered agent for a foreign principal. Now, there are about a dozen advisory opinions on the DOJ's website right now about what constitutes an unregistered agent or an agent and then a foreign principal. Most people believe that it's only effectuated when you're working on behalf of a foreign government, but that's not the case. That's actually 18 U.S.C. 951. But it can be private business interest abroad, whatever you're doing on behalf of a foreigner. You can do it. You just have to declare that to the Justice Department. Eric Schwerin, this is one of the, I guess, exclusive, you can call it, that Marco Polo got, is we look through all these emails, and Eric Schwerin and Hunter were actually talking about FARA in 2010 with regard to William Daley, the former chief for Hussein. And they said, and Eric was like, no wonder why we worry about this so much, because their entire business model was FARA violations. And William Daley actually registered in 1979, and they were talking about, the unspoken truth is that they never registered. And because, and the reason why they didn't do that, and again, this law has been on the books since 1938. It's only done against Republicans. You have to specify how much you're paid, the time period, and the services rendered. But if Hunter did that, then all these investigative journalists would start digging in. So he wanted his cake. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. And so that is the lion's share of the felonies. That is such an easy case. A second-year ASUA could prosecute that in a tiny judicial district. And then he does the same thing in Ukraine with Zlochevsky, Pizarsky, with Kazakhstan, with Kenes Rakashev and the sitting prime minister Karim Masimov. Then Romania, as I mentioned, Gabriel Popoviciu. These are all corrupt foreign oligarchs. Mexico. He committed FARA violations for Miguel Alemán. He set up meetings with the then Transportation Secretary Anthony Fox. I think he's the former mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, and he set up meetings between Interjet, which was a failed airliner in Mexico that the Alemans run, with Jeff Cooper, Jeff Cooper, by the way, Steve, he lives 40 minutes away from me in Illinois. I've sent all of them a report. UPS is actually blocked from delivering to their house if they see that my name is on the return receipt, hilariously. But Jeff Cooper was involved in these FARA violations with Hunter in Mexico. And then Serbia, you know this name from the laptop, Vuk Jeremic. These are all figures that I would love to expound upon as a witness or just in an informal capacity for whatever hearing. And even if he doesn't get removed, the trial alone in the Senate will be glorious because we'll be able to go through each and every country for which Hunter was an unregistered foreign agent.
The reason the foreign agent thing is big, ladies and gentlemen, and the reason that the Bidens never register, it's the Foreign Agent Registration Act. It's to let you know the broader interpretation is business individuals, but the very narrow, which has been one that's been enforced for years, if you're representing a foreign government, they want to know that. And Biden certainly couldn't be in a situation where his son, who he was in the middle of his business relationships with, was a foreign agent. Then the taint would have gone right to Joe. Now, what they did is they absolutely were a foreign agent. In fact, these are not Chinese businessmen. The chairman of CEFC, and CEFC is just not an energy company. It's a capital markets, a capital allocator for One Belt, One Road. And the young guy that ran, the chairman, was the golden boy. He was on the board, I think, of advisors at Lincoln Center, Asia Society. They were walking him around. New York and getting him on the most prestigious cultural, where you just write a check and you get on there. Patrick Ho, and it's not Garrett Ziegler and Steve Bannon saying Patrick Ho is a spy or an intelligence agent for the Chinese Communist Party or the PLA. It's Hunter Biden. He's on tape talking about the New York Times is all over him, and Patrick Ho's his partner, and he's the senior spy. He calls him the senior spy for the Chinese Communist Party. He actively knew he was a spy and yet was in business with him. That's from the lips of Hunter Biden. Talk to me about Romania. That may be the least people kind of got the general overview with Burisma. I think that also shows you why Joe Biden's so maniacal about getting Zelensky the $60 billion. The Ukrainians know all about Biden. They could rat him out in a second. That's why he has to buy their silence. Romania is a whole different story that kind of popped up, but it's in the it's in the everything to do with I think the tax indictment. More importantly, it's what the House is looking at too. Tell me about Romania.
Yes, so it has a bunch of corrupt players. Michael Gottlieb, the former Obama White House counsel, he was not the chief counsel, but he was in the White House counsel's office. He was the attorney for Seth Rich's brother, for Ruby Freeman. Oh, and Boy Schiller Flexner. It was Michael Gottlieb, Chris Boys, the son of the founder of Boy Schiller Flexner, and then the former head of the FBI, Louis Freeh. Now, it's been speculated that Louis Freeh is this so-called one eye. I understand why, because he was drunk driving and hit a truck, or he hit a tree with his SUV or truck up in New Hampshire, I think. His first visitor in the hospital was James Comey, by the way. But after that accident, he lost one of his eyes. So Louis Freeh was involved in this at the very ground level. You had Freeh, Boys, Gottlieb, and Hunter all working for Gabriel Popoviciu, who is now still to this day in London in exile because he doesn't want to go back to Romania to face these corruption charges it all involved a commercial real estate development in downtown Bucharest, the capital, called Băneasa, Banasea. And it was basically a job that Hunter was supposed to get the American FBI to put pressure on the Romanian court system. In fact, it was the same scheme, Steve, applied to Romania. And this is another, I think, one of our exclusives, is that the exact same tango went down in Romania, in that there was an enterprising prosecutor named Laura Kövesi. She's liberal, but in the same sense, she was the Romanian Victor Shokin. She was going after Hunter's client. All of these Americans were then lobbying the sitting U.S. ambassador to Romania, Hans Klem, surname Klemm. And there's emails about them meeting up for dinner with Gottlieb and Hunter in America to go after and basically to try to figure out how to carrot or stick the Romanian the Romanian judiciary to go easy on this client. They got $3 million for that work. And the indictment specifies that Rob Walker got $1 million. Hunter got $1 million, and James Gilliard got $1 million. And this money comes up in the divorce proceedings by name. Kathleen Buell includes this because she was still married to him at the time and thus entitled to some of the funds, and she did get them. So this Romania shakedown was on a smaller scale, but exactly the same as the Ukrainian shakedown in that they were hired to take care of a foreign prosecutor and use the power, influence, and pocketbook of the United States government to do so. It's disgusting.
You saw Zelensky, him being forced over here to talk to our military, to put the military in the middle of this spending debate, to have him, waltz around Capitol Hill when the Republicans don't want to see him. It's already a no vote, no money. But then to go to the White House, sit in front of the crackling fire, and then to meet the defense contractors, which was the point of the meeting. Are they trying to buy his silence? I mean, it's something weird about the $60 billion. They are so much, with all the other issues we've got, and it's so obvious. They're talking about keeping the Senate here longer. Langford, he's denying it, saying they can't get done. But Schumer's pushing to the press today. They're working on something on the border. They'll have it next week. He'll call the Senate back for a vote because they have to get money to the Ukraine by Christmas. This Ukraine thing something about it just doesn't make sense. Why does it keep popping up? Why does Zelensky pop up? Why is he the driving force in the Trump impeachment? Why are all these people, Fiona Hill and Vindman and all why do they keep popping up all the time? Make it make sense to me. Why is Ukraine and particularly getting billions to Ukraine when the war is clearly over? Why is this such a massive focus of Joe Biden?
I will use Joe Biden's own words. In a December 2016 call with Petro Poroshenko, Joe Biden brought up by name Ihor Kolomoisky. And Ihor Kolomoisky was the owner of Privatbank. You know this well. That was where a lot of the billions that were laundered through the IMF came back to the Ukrainian oligarchs. It was through Privatbank. Ihor Kolomoisky was actually, according to a 2012 anti-corruption article, the true beneficial owner of Burisma. They called Zlochevsky a minigarch and Kolomoisky the oligarch. So why does this matter? How does this connect to Joe? Well, in December 2016, right before DJT is to take office, he is telling Poroshenko, basically yelling at him, saying, "Nationalize Privatbank ASAP, because if you don't save Privatbank and basically, do what they did to Silicon Valley Bank, questions will start to be asked, and they'll start digging into, okay, how did this happen at Privatbank? How does Kolomoisky set up all of these Cypriot domiciled shell companies and get the money directly from the IMF?" So, in how this relates to Zelensky, if you go back and look at articles in 2018, Kolomoisky installed Zelensky. He was the main fundraiser. He provided security for him, and he owned the TV network that Zelensky played a piano with his genitals on. He owned that TV network. And so Ihor Kolomoisky has been arrested. I think that's basically a public show trial, because the Americans are demanding that for this aid, they have to take care of Kolomoisky. But I think Kolomoisky is the loose end. And I think that Zelensky is just another minigarch like Zlochevsky, and Kolomoisky is the one calling the shots. And again, don't take my word for it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, but don't bury the lead. When you say Biden said to him, between the time time Trump won, in that turbulent time we were doing the transition, doesn't Biden take a trip to Ukraine in that interim period? I mean, which is the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. Why would a sitting 6th. Vice president? Yes. January 6th, go back to that. That is the smoking gun. Why does a vice president of the United States that's now term has come to an end, he's got everything to think of, why in the world would a sitting vice president take Air Force 2 and go to Ukraine? You're out of power. You're out of office. You can't really do anything to make any big deals. Why would he go to Ukraine on January 6th of 2017, sir?
To tie up loose ends. And after that Ukraine trip, hilariously, he goes to Davos and meets with Xi. That same trip, on the way back, he stops in Davos. So January 6th, 4 years before the Fedsurrection, he's in he's in Kyiv meeting with Poroshenko, and there's tons of pictures of this. And I think it's to talk about Privat Bank. And why do I say that? It's not just speculation. Andrei Durkok, who everybody and their mother has derided, but nevertheless, not one of the audio files that Andrei Durkok released has proven to be a falsification of any kind. Those leaks that came out of NABU, their anti-corruption unit, those calls that Biden and Kerry had with Poroshenko, they're all real. So December 2016, Joe is scrambling. Joe wants to cover up the mess that is Privat Bank. He knows Kolomoisky owns like 52% of Privat Bank. Oh, and in fact, at this very second, there is civil litigation going down in Delaware about all of Kolomoisky's shell companies called Optima 1, Optima 2. Basically, the IMF loans were corruptly laundered through Privat Bank and then invested back into American real estate, which was owned by these Optima shell companies. And it's been stayed right now pending a resolution in Kolomoisky's Ukrainian trial. But I apologize if I buried the lead. That was a tying up loose ends trip. I think he was going to make sure that they took care of Privat Bank, because that was a hornet's nest.
Yep. A scab you don't want to pick. Where did they go to get Marco Polo? We've got about 30 seconds. Where do they go to follow you? You're the number one guy on this. You've got the receipts. Tell us where to go.
Thank you very much for having me on. Marco Polo 501c3. That's our handle, and that is our website, Marco Polo 501c3. Free e-reader online. Go to the Romania section. Go to the Ukraine section. I appreciate you having me on.
It's absolutely stunning. No, Garrett, you've done the best job. By the way, Garrett's research drove a lot of where this is headed. That's why we've had a formal inquiry. And hey, when Mark Elias is angry, spitting mad, and you saw that, when he's spitting mad, they got a problem. Garrett Ziegler, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. Want to make sure everybody gets a Warpath coffee. Maybe you need a little jack up. Don't worry about I'm too old. The caffeine's going to keep me up all night. Come on, let's roll. We got a lot to do. We got 30 minutes to go. We got to grind through. We got to run through the tape. Go to warpath.coffee/war room. Get your discount. Back in a moment.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, from the halls of Congress and the depths of the Biden crime family to the great state of Maine. Stephen Robinson at the Maine Wire joins us. Stephen, this story, and here's the reason. There's a chemical warfare attack by the CCP called fentanyl. And, Biden just went out and kowtowed to Xi. They're not doing anything about it. They're exacerbating it because it's killing, 70,000 Americans a month, more than the Korean War and Vietnam combined. But there's another war going on, too, and you're seeing that fought in the great state of Maine. Talk to me about it. These Chinese nationals, marijuana. This thing's a mess. This is going to be the equivalent in Maine of the drug trade down in the Rio Grande Valley, which corrupted all the Rio Grande Valley. It corrupted the judges. It corrupted the courts. It corrupted the law enforcement. I see bad things happening in Maine. Brother, what's going on?
About a month ago, we at the Maine Wire reported that there were between 270 and 300 illegal Chinese-owned marijuana grow operations happening throughout primarily rural Maine. And our report was based on a memo that was leaked from the Department of Homeland Security, which acknowledged the existence of these sites, but it didn't include any addresses and names. So we went out, hit the pavement, reviewed property records, interviewed neighbors. We actually identified nearly 200 of these sites, actually up to 250 about now. And this morning, one of those sites was raided by the Machias Police Department. And for those who don't know where Machias is, we're talking about very, very rural Maine. This is Washington County, the easternmost county in the United States. Not a lot of people living out there, and law enforcement not typically equipped to deal with a vast criminal conspiracy backed by the CCP. But that's exactly what they stumbled onto or investigated for the last month and busted this morning in cooperation with the FBI, the Maine Drug Enforcement Agency, the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Washington County Sheriff's Office. So this was a big law enforcement effort. They captured 2,700 live plants, 100 pounds of processed marijuana. So we're looking at well over $1 million of illegally grown marijuana. the Office of Cannabis Policy here in the state of Maine, which has regulatory authority over adult use recreational and medicinal products, legally grown weed, said that this facility was not associated in any way with a licensed marijuana grower. So this was purely illegal. And I talked with the Massachusetts police chief earlier today, and he assured me that there's no evidence that these individuals are U.S. citizens. So they may have some form of legal status or an asylum claim here, but they're not present. They're not present here as U.S. citizens. And it's going to be a big deal coming up in the legislative session here, because a state representative, John Andrews, has proposed a bill that would really implement some of the toughest restrictions on Chinese foreign nationals owning property in the state of Maine that have ever really been proposed. This would be an attempt to force these individuals who are part of this criminal conspiracy to sell off their assets in Maine. And the goal is for middle-class Maine families to be living in these 270 to 300 properties that have effectively been hollowed out and put into service for a vast criminal conspiracy that does not serve the American interest and does not serve the interests of the people of Maine.
These rural communities are being decimated by fentanyl and other drugs, methamphetamine, all this. And you got to help me out here. You're a hard-nosed reporter. When I see this, and there's 300, I think you reported first, it's 300, over 300 of these illegal farms, roughly. Is that what you estimate in the map that you showed us?
So the Department of Homeland Security memo estimated that there were between 270 and 300. I personally have identified what I believe to be 250. The majority of those I visited in person and can confirm that all the hallmarks of an illegal marijuana grow operation are there. Personally, based on my experience in the field, I think that Homeland Security is underestimating the number of properties, because what we found is not just marijuana grows per se. We've also found boarding houses throughout the state where it looks like individuals who are working on these grow operations, it's where they go to sleep, eat, and stay, but then they go out and they tend the sites during the day. So there are those facilities, there are warehouses or stash houses throughout the state. So it's a very complex operation. I would say well over 300 properties in Maine owned by this conspiracy.
Okay, you've gotten to the point. This is just like the drugs down on the border, the cartels. These are sophisticated operations, logistics, the production, the distribution. The people in back of this, one, they're well capitalized. Number two, they're not idiots. These are very smart business people. The way these things roll is quite sophisticated. In the Rio Grande Valley, when we started our coverage down there over a decade ago, one of the things we noticed is that every now and again you would have a bust. And a bust, sometimes these were big busts. And law enforcement and the good guys just tell me, hey, that happens all the time, particularly where you see corruption, because they want to make sure the media, they want to make sure the Stephen Robinsons of the world are satisfied they get a big story, but it continues to grind on. Are you concerned, given there hasn't been a big roll-up of this, you've had some interesting onesies, twosies, that somehow the fix is in, somehow the money's gotten to law enforcement or gotten to either the political process or the courts, and people are every now and again going to toss us so we can have Stephen Robinson on here once a quarter with a bust, but that the operation continues to run, and that's just a cost of doing business for him?
Well, I will say that there are vast amounts of money to be made in growing marijuana in Maine, both legally and illegally. So there's I guess a tendency of the legal marijuana growers to not want any scrutiny whatsoever. But I found no evidence whatsoever that any law enforcement have been receiving bribes. I have talked with people who have been bribed by Chinese individuals when they're inspecting the electrical equipment at their property. A guy who speaks no English will stuff two crisp $100 bills in their back pocket and say coffee money, coffee money, coffee money as they're escorted off the property after signing off on their 400 amp service panels. So we do know that bribery is something that is well within the capacity of this organization or these organizations, but I haven't seen any evidence that Maine law enforcement are on the take, so to speak. I think more likely it's that this problem just isn't on their radar. And when Maine voted in 2016 to legalize marijuana for adult use, it sent a signal to law enforcement that this wasn't a priority and that they should be dealing with fentanyl, really.
You think that's it? You think that it doesn't raise to know there's 300 of these farms out there, these boarding houses, yet you're just getting one? I'm not saying you have the evidence today, But doesn't it strike you as odd, given that how up in your face this is, that it's going very slowly? And have we really captured any, in this raid, did we capture any Chinese nationals? Are we actually starting to arrest people associated with this?
Yeah, there were 3 arrests made, all older gentlemen, all Chinese surnames, and the police chief tells me that he has no evidence that they're U.S. citizens. There was some difficulty communicating with them, but he was still in the process of doing paperwork and finishing up with the investigation on account of he had to take 3 dump truck loads of marijuana to the transfer station this afternoon for destruction. It is a big mystery around here why we know that the FBI has been looking into these facilities for at least 3 years. A former sheriff in Maine confirmed that for me. And to date, this makes the 4th facility that has actually been busted and has led to some arrests. I was at a facility in Wilton a couple of times over the last 3 weeks that was busted. Same story. $1 million in weed confiscated. Chinese nationals were working it. No arrests made. And while I'm there inspecting the property, a Chinese man sticks his head out the door, and I attempt an interview. He can't talk with me. I ask him if he works there. He says yes, and then he quickly leaves. And we could see in the snow, because it had recently snowed, that cars had been coming and going from there all day long. So individuals literally returning to the scene of the crime, no police there to arrest them. I don't think it's a matter of corruption or bribery at this point. I think it's just no one wants to believe that a conspiracy like this could be operating in a bucolic place like rural Maine.
How before we leave, I want to give us your assessment of in rural Maine, which is just one of the most beautiful parts of this nation. How bad is the fentanyl? How bad is the methamphetamine? How bad are the drug labs? How is this eviscerating working class folks in these rural communities?
Absolutely. I mean, and the place I was just telling you about in Wilton, that grow was happening in behind, what used to be the Bass Shoe Factory. 20 years ago, there were thousands of people with good union, well-paid jobs in that community. The community was really formed around that. The same thing for my hometown of Dexter, where there was another shoe factory. Bass Shoe is not there. Dexter Shoe is not there anymore. Instead, the biggest employer in these towns is the town or a public school, and you can't build a community around those. And when there's no jobs, you turn to black market trade, whether that's fentanyl, illegal marijuana, and there's also a level of desperation that underlies every single instance of drug use here. And you just need to look at the ever-increasing overdose trends or go to the Casco Bay Bridge in Portland, where there's about 300 people right now. I think it's like 20 degrees out. There's about 300 people who are sleeping tonight under the Casco Bay Bridge. So the fentanyl crisis, the meth crisis, and now the illegal marijuana operated by a foreign criminal organization, it's devastating rural Maine. It's one of the biggest problems we have. But I have good news. Steve. Today, the FBI arrested an older woman from Auburn, Maine, for her alleged involvement in January 6th. So everybody in Maine can sleep safe tonight knowing that the FBI is on the job.
Good God, man. Unbelievable. The folks in Maine. Steve, how do people get to the Maine Wire? I love reading it. You guys are on top of things. Where do they go?
They can find everything at themainwire.com, and that's our handle on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we've got another big story coming tomorrow in relation to these Chinese grows.
We'll look forward to talking to you then. Steve Robinson, the Maine Wire. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Steve.
Maine, it's like Montana and Wyoming and Arizona. They don't come any better than this. And look at that. It's one of the reasons we do the Birch Gold all the time. The CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, you think they have any respect for us? They know this is going on. Half these guys are Chinese intelligence assets, not officers, but assets. This is, if the pandemic was a biological weapons attack on us, and TikTok is an information warfare attack on us, this is a chemical warfare attack. It's a chemical warfare attack. That's what fentanyl is, and they know that. Dr. Thea's got up there the second opium war piece on War Room. And this is just another. The marijuana is not as bad, but remember, it's an entry-level drug, and they're just doing it to show they can get away with it and eviscerate these rural communities. Remember, when he says Bass Shoes, that's the old Bass Weegians. Gone. Dexter Shoes, one of the mainstays of kind of working class and middle class America, gone. All the factories gone. This is what happens when you debase your currency. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon. find out about it. Understand the end of the dollar empire. That dollar empire will be the United States of America. Because now we're in a crisis. Of course, Johnson, he's wheels up, they're gone. I said today, and I'm not trying to be harsh, Newsweek's got his lead story. We don't need any more Christian talk. We need Christian action. Stand in the gap. That's what our religion over 2 millennia has been. Standing in the gap, standing up. And remember, they say that the Christian nationalists, all you people, the traditional Catholics, evangelical Christians, you're bad because you love your country too much. Remember the book out there by Tim Alberta. You love your country too much. Mike Lindell, you've done a great job being Santa's helper. People's heads are still blown from the last hour when you announced it. I need to have another announcement. I'll make sure all the War Room posse, particularly our vast radio audience, understands what's happening. Walk us through what you and your team at the company have done.
Yeah, we worked on it this afternoon, everybody, and we are now. We're going to cover your shipping, expedited shipping on your whole order for Christmas. You're going to get it guaranteed by Christmas. And my employees, they've all so grateful to the War Room posse. They're going to work and make sure that everything gets shipped out by Monday. But you're guaranteed by Christmas. We've heard it from the shippers. I'm putting up all the money for the free shipping for all of you on your entire order. So take advantage of this. We got those roll and go anywhere pillows, $9.99, regular $30. Get 10, 20 of them. There's no limit, and it's free shipping on your whole order. You have the down comforters, 60% off. Get yourself a nice gift by Christmas. The My Pillow 2.0, and don't forget the flannel sheets. The flannel sheets, when they came in, the War Room posse blew them out, and now we just got one more container in. When it's gone, it's gone, but you can get it by Christmas and free shipping, expedited shipping. So this is a big announcement. We're really proud that we were able to put this together. You guys, we have blankets, sleepwear, loungewear, our My Slippers. All of our products are the best gifts you could ever get for the best prices ever. And now the last chance for free expedited shipping guaranteed by Christmas.
Mike, I want to thank you. People last hour were just going crazy. So free shipping up through Monday. Is that what it's going to be? And the staff's going to stay all weekend to make sure everything gets shipped?
That's right. Free shipping through Monday, everybody. Call the operators now. They're so grateful. They all got their bonus checks, and this is their way to give back. They've all said, hey, we're going to work all weekend. Make sure these get out. So you're not only getting free expedited shipping, but you're still getting the best prices ever on all of our products at MyPillow. And so call that number, too. 800-873-1062. They love talking to you. The War Room posse, and so many of them, like I said last hour, they're learning about what your show's all about. I think you got a lot more fans coming on. I've been catching a lot of my employees watching your show when they're supposed to be working. What's up with that?
I tell you, you got to turn them into they're warriors. They're work warriors now. We'll make them election warriors. Mike, thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. I know last hour my phone's been blowing up. People so grateful because they need a little more time to go to mypillow.com /War Room, promo code War Room, or 800-873-1062 to check everything out. Merry Christmas. You're Santa's helper, brother. Santa's helper.
Man. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Steve. And I'm heading to California. I'm going to be going speeches there this weekend, and then I'm going to Phoenix for the big event there, and it's going to be great. I'm on the road now. It's all about securing our elections and saving our country, everybody.
Reawaken America is Friday, Saturday, and then AmFest starts at Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Mike Lindell will be there. We'll be there. Check everything out. Mike Lindell, thank you very much. Honored to have you on here.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody at the War Room.
In fact, Lady No Grady is going to premiere the song Modern Day Holy War, I think, at the Reawaken tour with Clay Clark and the team, and then she's going to be at AmFest. So that's starting to get some traction. Tomorrow, Lara Logan's going to join us. We're going to have an action-packed show starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and then 2 hours in the afternoon. Congress has left, but it doesn't mean the fight has left. We got a lot of work to do here. And look, Speaker Johnson's a good man. He's a decent man. He's got a Christian worldview. But, hey, we need action now. And we're going to walk through what the action plan's got to be, because the nation's on the precipice on so many different areas. And now with starting this impeachment effort on Biden, you're going to see some of the ugly underbelly of the way the deep state works, because this impeachment is going to tie back to Trump's first impeachment on the Ukraine. You wait. The details you're going to see on this and getting out the laptop from hell is going to shock you. For those of you who haven't been with us for the last couple of years, remember, we did a pretty good job of making sure people could understand what was in the laptop from hell. Crom, Carmichael, we're asking our audience to be lion hearts. How they gonna have healthy hearts, brother?
Steve, thanks so much for having me, and I enjoyed listening to Mike Lindell talk about My Pillow. I've got a bunch of My Pillows and his slippers, and they're fantastic. And my dog wants you to know how enthusiastic, if you can hear him in the background, how enthusiastic he is about Soul Tea. But this right here is a bottle of Soul Tea. We've got 60 soft gel capsules in this bottle. People take 2 a day. And I want to just read to you, and I read this for your morning audience a couple of days ago, but this is from April. One of our customers says, my cholesterol was extremely high. I didn't want to take the statin drugs my doctor was insisting that I get on. I had been seeing Crom on the War Room and thought, what the heck, I'll give it a shot. So I signed up for a 3-month subscription, and I just finished that and got my second order. And I went to the doctor, had my blood drawn, and I waited for his phone call. And I was happy to announce that I am on my way. My cholesterol has dropped 26 points, and my doctor is thrilled and says, whatever I'm doing, keep doing. I told her about Soul Tea. She took the information down and said she'd check it out. Thanks so much. You are a lifesaver, literally. And heart health is the most important thing we can have. And I apologize for my dog. I can't do anything about it. And you can go to warroomhealth.com. That's warroomhealth.com, and use the code WARROOM at checkout. That's WARROOM at checkout to get 50% off on your initial shipment. And we'll also include this very, very nice little booklet on keys to heart health. It's very short, but every item in there is important. And use the code WARROOM at checkout to get 50% off on your first shipment, and then on an ongoing basis, you'll get 3 bottles for the price of 2, and we always pay the freight. Steve, thanks so much for letting me tell the War Room posse about Soul Tea.
You and the dog. We got the dog thrown in for free. Remember, I don't work with kids and dogs. I don't ever work. I'm like, what is it? The old comedian. I think Mae West. I don't work with kids and dogs. Thank you so much. Let's get healthy hearts. Dave. Go to Soul Tea. Thank you, brother. You. Lady Nogrady takes us out with modern day Holy War. She'll be at the Reawaken Festival in Tulare, California, premiering the song with Clay Clark and the team, and then she'll be down at Amfest. We're going to be back here at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow morning when, guess what? You're going to be in the War Room. See you then.